Hi everyone, this is Julianne Victoria of Through the Peacock's Eyes. Welcome to my channel and Happy New Year 2020. So this video I'm going to look through and discuss the differences between the first edition and the second edition of my book, Shedding Light on Jyotisha, Vedic Astrology for Beginners. So if you've been following my channel for a long time and you used to watch like my monthly Vedic horoscopes, and if you more recently watch my new and full moon videos, the Vedic Astrology ones, you will have seen me reference my book, the first edition, Shedding Light on Jyotisha. Right before Christmas 2019, the second edition came out. It looks very different. This is just the proof line. Your copy will not have this line there. The proof copy that I had just came out. Now, when I was working on the second edition, originally I thought I was just going to add in chart sample readings, which I didn't do in the original one. Now, the original one was compiled and then expanded from dozens of blog posts I used to have on my blog, Through the Peacock's Eyes. And I put this together, I think in 2013, 2014. The book came out, I think, in 2015. And it was one of the first books I self-published. So as I was going through it, rereading the whole thing to decide what I wanted to add to it, I decided to rewrite the entire book. So a couple of the big things that I'll discuss here, and then I'm going to flip the camera around so you can see both copies at the same time, is the first edition, the size was 5.5 by 8.5, and it was double space. I'm not sure why that was my decision. I think it's because my children's fairy tale was double spaced in the same size and I went with the same template. But that's not my preference for writing. So the second edition is 6 by 9, so it's a little bit larger. And it is, 1.12 spacing. So not so close, not single space. That's a little hard on the eyes. A little easier on the eyes, easier to read, but not so much space. So there's a lot of space in that first one. The second one, as you can see, has bullet points, and it's organized better for ease of reference. So you can use it, you can read it front to back, but you can also use it as a reference book. And so everything is laid out in the table of contents. I also added in some charts. So we have exaltation and debilitation charts. There were no charts in the first one, no bullet points in the first one. And for people who need it, planetary symbol charts. And then I also have in the chart sample readings. And I chose 3 celebrities, Prince, Karen Carpenter, and Marilyn Monroe. And I chose celebrities who have passed on because I do feel it's important to get someone's permission to do a reading and then make it public for the world. So out of respect for living people's privacy, I chose celebrities who have passed on. So those are the most notable differences. So the second edition, because it's bigger and it's not double spaced, and I added more content, I did rewrite and edited a whole bunch of stuff from the first edition. I was just thinking that, there were some things where I was like, why did I say that? I mean, I've done hundreds of more readings and have much more experience and have been learning more. And that has helped me to rewrite it. And hopefully it's rewritten so that it's easier to follow, it's easier to understand. The explanations are graspable. And it's an excellent tool, hopefully, for anyone who wants to learn astrology from scratch, come from a Western astrology perspective, or wants to learn to read their own natal chart, can use this book as a great reference. Okay, so I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll look through the 2 versions to compare them, to see some of the differences. Okay, let's do that now. Okay, so we have the first edition here and the second edition. You can see the size difference. Thickness-wise, it doesn't look that different, but That's because of the double spacing versus the 1.5 spacing. Okay, so the first edition, just to run through, and I've never did one of these before. Those are all my notes for editing. There are no bullet points. We have the nakshatras. It's just paragraphs. See my editing notes there. And the only graphics are these in the back. And this I actually took out in the second edition. So I didn't go into, how to read a chart so much. I mean, everything in here helps you to read a chart. But again, this was a long time ago, and it was a collection. Most of it was a collection from blog posts I had on my blog. Okay, so that was the first edition. Very simple, very basic, basically put together. Okay, since then I've done a lot more writing and editing, and a second edition is something I'd wanted to do for quite some time, just life and time permitting. So here's our second edition. A little explanation on the back. Again, your copy would not have this proof line. That's just for the creators. And so the table of contents, it's laid out so you can look things up really quickly. So let's say you want to know, about Saturn. You can look him up. You don't have to shuffle through the planets chapter and find it. And the same for nakshatra. You're like, oh, what is Jyotisha? You can look it right up instead of just going to the chapter on nakshatras and like shuffling through. So I have my introduction. What is Vedic astrology or Jyotisha? I talk about the sidereal zodiac, and then of course there is the lunar zodiac. Talk about the planets, explain what Rahu and Ketu are. They are referred to as planets, but they're actually points, and I go into that there. And then we go into the planet. So there's a description of what the planet symbolizes, what it means, bullet points. So I'll hold that closer for you. Rulership, if there's exaltation and debilitation, for each of the planets. And again, the planets will include Rahu and Ketu. There are pages for notes popped in between chapters, most chapters. And then we go into the signs. I discuss the elements of the signs before going into the signs. The characteristics, so cardinal, fixed, and mutable, what that means. And then I go into all the 12 signs of the zodiac. I give the Sanskrit names for those who wish to learn them, but it is an English reference, so it's not riddled with a lot of Sanskrit terminology, which can make it extra challenging if you're trying to learn Vedic astrology and you speak English. There are bullet points where I go through the rulership, the elements, if it's cardinal, fixed, and mutable, its symbol, if there's any exaltation and debilitation. And one thing that was pointed out to me by my dear friend Diane of Indigo Moon Woman is that there's no little paragraph for Sun and Capricorn, so there is an addendum on my blog, which you will find, and I'll link that in the description below. I'll try to remember to put it in the comments below too. And then we move on to the houses, and I discuss some of the special types of houses in Vedic astrology, the ones that I have found most important to take note of, depending on a client's chart. And at this point, I've been, studying and practicing Vedic astrology for 15 years. And I always say there's more to learn. There's always more to learn. But from my experience, this book contains the most important things you should look at to study your own chart, or eventually study others if that's what you wish to do. I talk about the different styles of the North and Indian style charts. I use North Indian style, so that's what this book will use, but I point that out for those who might pull up your chart online, and it's the South Indian style. And then we go into the 4 motivations, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, and the guna qualities, Sattva, Tamas, and Rajas. and we're in the chapter on the nakshatras. So the nakshatras I go through, explanation, and the bullet points will give its location, its rulership, so planetary rulership, deity rulership, symbols, and its gunas and motivation or purushartha. And so I go through those. This does also include Abhijit, the extra nakshatra. So that's our nakshatras. Again, organized. You want to pull up, you look in the table of contents and what's Revati, and you look it up, and you just want to quickly see, what planet rules it. You can reference it pretty easily. At least that's my goal. And then we go into interpreting a birth chart. I talk about the ascendant. I go deeper into that and its physiological associations, because the ascendant is one way to look at health, as well as sixth house of health. And so I give little charts of what areas of the bodies are associated with different signs and different planets. And then I go into planetary rulership and strength. I give the exact degrees of exaltation and debilitation, but I go further into that in the book. I talk about some other things that have to do with strength, like combustion, aspects, drishtis, and yogas, what I feel is the most important from my own experience, how to look at transits, and I discuss in the first example reading on Prince a little more about looking at transits, but with the sample chart readings, because these people have passed on, we can't really look at future transits. So I looked at transits of significant points in their life for the sample readings. And then a little bit more looking into karma, if you'd like to do that in your chart. And then some balancing, cancellation, and alleviation. And of course, as I often point out, everything in astrology has positive and negative aspects. Though some things are often looked at only positively and only negatively, everything has both. This is the realm of duality. So, and then I give a little chart of the metal and the gemstones for alleviation, for enhancing difficult things in your charts or difficult things in your life that are indicated in your chart that you're actually experiencing. And then I go into the sample interpretations. Before I do that, I give you the symbols for the signs and the planets for those who aren't familiar with them. But, so here we have Prince chart, Prince Rogers Nelson. I give the chart both with only symbols for those who know them or wish to learn them, but I also give the charts with the text abbreviations. So if you don't know the symbols and you want to quickly look, you'd be like, okay, we have Jupiter here in the 12th house in the 6th sign of Virgo. So it's easier reference for those who don't know the symbols. I lay out the ascendant, moon, and sun at the start of the 3, and then I go into looking at the most significant things in their charts. And I point this out, these aren't extensive readings. There's about 4 pages on each, and I do look at significant transits at certain points in their lives. But to do like, a fully extensive reading, those could be books in themselves. But enough to give everyone, hopefully, who reads this, an idea of what to look at and how to look at things in a chart, so you can learn to read your own birth chart or learn astrology if you wish to become an astrologer. So here we have Karen Carpenter, and then we have Marilyn Monroe. And at the back, there's just a little about the author and a few bits of information. So that is the second expanded, actually rewritten edition of my astrology book, Shedding Light on Jyotisha, Vedic Astrology for Beginners. And I usually mention this when I talk about this book. It is designed, or it is written for those who are very new to astrology, because Vedic astrology can be very overwhelming, especially coming from a Western perspective. So my original intention, and my intention still, is to put something together for people to learn Vedic astrology without getting scared away by all the Sanskrit terminology and the layers of, multiple charts, and you can go on and on and on. But I do believe, and I mentioned this in, I think, the introduction, I am of the school of thought, after reading hundreds, possibly thousands of charts, that you can see most, if not all of what you need to know and understand at a given point in time by just looking at the birth chart. Okay, so that is my little look through of the new edition of Shedding Light on Jyotisha. I'll link below, or below is linked where you can purchase it on Amazon. I'll also link the little addendum to the sun for Sun in Capricorn for those who need that. But it's on my blog website, peacockseyes.com, and it will always be there. Thank you for watching. Thank you those who purchased the book. Thank you for liking, subscribe, share this with someone whom you think might like the book, and I will see you back here soon.